July 19th. Me and Rondell killed about 5 hot dogs each, mowed through half a pack of beef jerky, some donuts, and were working on our second six-pack of beer. Mong, on the other hand, he'd hardly touched a thing. He claimed he wasn't hungry because he was thinking about how we were going to get to Mexico, but that was BS. Twice I watched him sneak down to the beach, and I'd put money down he was throwing up. I didn't know what was wrong with dude, but it wasn't no regular stomach flu or food poisoning. I felt bad, too, because of how I used my mind on him. I mean, we weren't best friends or anything, and he was mostly a psycho who I was definitely going to part ways with the second we got to Mexico, but still, people should never wish medical stuff on other people. We stayed sitting around the big pile of glowing charcoal talking, me and Rondell mostly, us drinking beer, Mong sipping a can of Coke. We talked about juvie and the way Jaden called everybody bro, and how it might be down in Mexico. We talked about old girls we'd known, and the racist store worker, and if because of him the cops would be out looking for us tomorrow. We said how if we had our pick, we'd all live in houses right here along the beach like this, where you could hear the waves breaking on the sand and smell the salt water air coming through your bedroom window when you climbed your tired ass into bed at night. And then I don't even know how, but we got to talking about what made us scared. Rondell said the devil. Sometimes, he explained, the devil came right into his head at the weirdest times, made him do things he'd never think of on his own. He told us about the time he beat up some man in a suit standing outside of a church for no reason. The devil just went into his head and twisted his thoughts around as he was walking toward the guy. Next thing he knew, he was wailing on the guy's bloody face, right there on the sidewalk in front of everybody. Took 3 cops with billy clubs to finally pull him off. The suit guy ended up spending 4 days in intensive care with all kinds of injuries, including a fractured skull. It was the first time he'd ever gotten arrested, Rondell said. He was only 11. I stared at him after he was done telling his crazy-ass story, thinking how maybe that's the reason he carried a Bible around everywhere he went. Maybe he thought it would fend off his imaginary devil problems. Now I'm scared like hell of hearing the devil, Rondell said. I never know when he's gonna just come running up in my head and mix everything up. Me and Mong sat there a sec, nodding, letting Rondell's words have a little space. We all sipped our drinks and stared at the glowing charcoal. I considered how Rondell was more messed up than I even thought, maybe even as messed up as Mong if you looked at it a certain way. But what that shit say about me then? I mean, I was right here with him. What about you, Mexico? Rondell said. I took a sip of my beer and pointed the can at him. Don't laugh, I said. I'm serious, but it's damn spiders. Rondell looked at me with his eyes all bugged. Spiders? Spiders. He slapped his jeans-covered knee and put a fist to his mouth. Nah, Mexico, he said through his laughter. Mom gave me a weird look like I had just been playing, but I wasn't. I promise, man, those little bastards freak me out. Bring on a damn panther or cobra snake. Put me in a ring with a big-ass bull. I don't even care. But if I catch a daddy longlegs creeping across my bedspread one night, yo, I put this on everything. I'll go crash on the living room couch for a week. Rondell threw a piece of seaweed at me, still cracking up. He took a swig of his beer and said, You the scaredy cat, Mexico. I let spiders crawl all on my hands and arms. You also let the devil crawl all over your brain, I shot back. Rondell's face went dead serious. What do you mean by that, Mexico? What I just said, Rondo. I glanced at Mong, then went back to Rondell. Dog, you gotta take a couple Q-tips to those ears, man. You got mad wax buildup. Just what'd you tell me then? Spiders freak me out. Oh, that's all I'm saying, Rondo. Why didn't you just say it then, Mexico? You don't gotta bring up me and the devil like that. It's blasphemic. I smiled. You mean blasphemous? What'd you think I just said? I shook my head at the poor kid, told him, Let me ask you something, Pope John Paul. What do you think that word even means? Rondell sipped his beer and looked at Mom. Then he looked back at me. Means when someone brings in the devil when they're supposed to just be talking about spiders. I spit out a mouthful of beer. I laughed so hard. I pumped my fist and told him, Rondell, man. What? You my man, dog, for real. At first he tried to be serious, like maybe I was still messing with him, which I was. But then a smile slowly came over his face and he said, But that's just what it means, Mexico. Don't play like I ain't never knowed what blasphemic is. Even Mong was chuckling now. When we all finally stopped laughing, I asked him the question too. Yo, what about you, man? Mong shrugged, said nothing. Come on, I said. You gotta be scared of something. What about terrorists or earthquakes or herpes? He shook his head and looked at the label of his Coke can. I think we're all just passing through in this life. We're only temporary. When I learned that, I realized there's no reason to be scared. I nodded for a little while, staring at the sand by Mong's feet, feeling the alcohol warming my insides. I looked up at him. I'm not gonna lie, man, you kind of lost me a little. And if you lost me, that means Rondo over there probably thinks you're talking about the devil again. What you saying with me and the devil? Rondell said, shooting me a dirty look. That shit ain't right, Mexico. I waved Rondell off and turned back to Mong. How long you thought that way? Mong shrugged. I just woke up one day and realized it. Like I told that guy in the store, I have nothing to lose because nothing belongs to me. He paused a sec, picked up a stick and spun it around his fingers. I don't even know what it feels like to be scared anymore. It's complicated. Me and Rondell stared at him, confused, but at the same time I believed him too. Maybe it explains some of the crazy things he did and how calm he seemed even when we were in a fight. Nobody looks that calm during a fight, not even Diego. As we sat there in the sand, me and Rondell finished another beer each, cracked open a couple fresh ones. I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol since the last time I chilled with Diego on the levee, so I was buzzing pretty hard. It felt nice and warm and mellow. It made me feel like us three were on some kind of important journey to save America from evil, like a brand new kind of war, no fighting or bombing or invading other places, just living out in the open, on the beach, the opposite of being in jail. We were totally free. People think they're free just being in this country, but it's more than that. I looked up at Mong and Rondell, all inspired as hell, and said, Yo, I gotta go write in my journal, man. When I stood up, I realized I was more than just buzzed. I was drunk. Why are you always writing in there for, Mexico? Rondell said. Well, Rondo, I said, swaying a little, maybe it's 'cause a court-appointed judge told me I had to. Yeah, but Mexico, Rondell said, the judge ain't gonna be with us down in Mexico. I stood there looking at him for a few seconds. I couldn't believe it. Rondell had actually stumped my ass. I almost wanted to tackle the guy into the sand and get his big head in a vice grip for saying something that actually made sense. Instead, I just swayed in the wind and sipped my beer, thinking how beer had the exact opposite effect on us two. It made me all dumb as a rock and him halfway literate. I waved them both off, the big black drunk-ass Einstein and the little Asian Buddhist psychopath. I scooped up my bag and pointed at Rondell. Maybe I just still want to do it. You ever think of that, homie? Maybe someday I'll bury my journal somewhere in Mexico, and hundreds of years from now, some archaeologist will come along and dig it up, and people will know how we lived in this era, or at least you, me, and Mom. And when they read about you, Money, they'll find out how the devil twists your thoughts and how you eat hot dogs by leaning your head back and dropping the whole damn thing down your big-ass mouth, and how pretty much all you do when you're not eating is piss and shit and sleep and say, what you mean by that, Mexico? Rondell and Mong both grinned a little. And then Rondell shot back, You gonna tell him I'm handsomer than you too, Mexico? Mong actually laughed out loud after Rondell said that one, which made Rondell think what he just said must have been the funniest thing in the history of mankind, and he laughed so hard he actually fell over into the sand. I already did, Rondo, I said. Did what? Rondell asked, sitting back up, still laughing. Said how handsome you are. His face got a little more serious. You really said that about me, Mexico? Hell nah, I didn't say that, Rondo. This shit I write in here ain't fiction. It's true to life. They both laughed a little more, and I shifted my bag from one shoulder to the other and spun it around and left. I walked through thick sand and giant clumps of fly-infested seaweed to try and find a spot with enough light that I could see what I was doing. I cruised all the way back out to the street, sat on a rock underneath one of the few streetlights, and pulled out my journal. Every few seconds, I looked for cop cars, even though we were a long ways from the store, and I supposedly didn't care. I stared at the cover of my journal, thinking about what Rondell had just said about no judges being in Mexico. The guy was right. Technically, I didn't have to write in here anymore, but for some reason, I still wanted to. Maybe it was because I'd already started, or because I thought we should have a record of us going to Mexico. Or maybe it was because of all the books I was reading, and how much I liked them, and how me writing in this journal was really just a way for me to make like I was writing my own book, except everything that happens in it is true instead of made up stories. And I don't want to waste time saying a bunch of shit about how I feel. and how everybody else feels, like a damn girl's diary does. Maybe I just want to put what happens and what people say. Miguel Castaneda, author. Yo, you better recognize. Actually, it really doesn't matter what the reason is, or what anybody else thinks, or how I do it. I just want to keep going with my journal, so I am. I didn't end up writing in my journal right away, though. I set it to the side of my bag and pulled out Mong's and Rondell's and my files instead, the ones they had no clue I even had. The 3 folders had gotten pretty messed up in my bag, all folded over and crushed by clothes and some of the food we'd swiped. I smoothed them out, picturing Jaden and Lester sitting in their offices, sipping coffee and reading about us, deciding who we were just based on what it said. I opened Mong's first and read it cover to cover, and I was completely shocked about what it said. Under education, Mong attended private schools through junior high school, all in Santa Monica, ranked top 5 in his class with a GPA of over 4.0 at the time of his parents' death. After being sent to live with extended family, enrolled in a public school in Gunnerville, California. Severe drop in grades, attendance, and behavior. Held back in 9th grade. Teachers labeled him aloof, withdrawn, violent, at risk. My eyes bugged as I flipped to the next page. I looked back at where Mong and Rondell were, but I couldn't see them from my spot on the street. Suddenly I was sober as hell. I knew I was reading some shit I wasn't supposed to be reading. But it was so fascinating to find out about someone you've been around for over a month. I turned back to Mong's file and kept going. Under health issues. Shot in the face from point-blank range at age 14. Bullet entered one cheek and exited the other. In hospital for 4 months, multiple surgeries, months of physical therapy. Ultimately recovered with major scarring around face and reconstructed teeth. At 16, diagnosed with major kidney disease, now advanced. Must be taken to a health clinic every 48 hours for hemodialysis. Currently on waiting list for donor and kidney transplant. Outlook uncertain. Under criminal history. Arrested at 14 for arson. Set fire to family house in Los Angeles. Arrested at 15 for first-degree assault. Arrested at 15 for vandalism and disorderly conduct. Arrested at 16 for first-degree assault. History of substance abuse. Clinically depressed, severely antisocial, and suicidal tendencies. Under Mong's family history. Father Chinese, graduated Harvard Law. Mother half Chinese, half Vietnamese, singer from Shanghai. Moved from China to Santa Monica, California a few years after marriage. Mother diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Showed improvement as a result of medication. Relapsed after second miscarriage. Father moved wife's entire family from China to California to form support system. Mother refused to leave house. Stopped all communication with husband and family. Mong raised by nanny. Family therapy, couples therapy, but marriage ultimately failed. September 13th, 2006. Father shot wife in back of head while she slept, killing her instantly. Father shot Mong in the face, intending to end his life also, then placed gun in own mouth and committed suicide. Mong survived with major injuries to head and face. Copy of father's suicide note written in Mandarin, translated. Our family was no longer happy in this life. We will try again in the next one. Things will be better. 5 months in UCLA Medical Center, multiple surgeries. Mong moved up from Gunnerville, California to live with extended family, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, and cousin. Holy shit, I thought as I closed Mong's folder. My life was 20 times better than Mong's. His old man actually killed his mom and then tried to kill him. Mei Li's whole story of true love was actually Mong's damn life. He had to have been the baby the singer had in her stomach that made her not be able to win the contest. Holy shit. And how could all of this shit happen to somebody and then they get a kidney problem too? How's that even fair? To have so many bad things happen in one life. No wonder Mong never ate anything and was always tired and throwing up all over the place. No wonder he was so pissed off and wanted to fight everybody. I sat there for a few minutes, completely stunned. I didn't even know what to do or think. I stared down at the empty highway, not really seeing anything, but going over Mong's life in my head. Without even thinking, I picked up Mong's file and ripped it into 1,000 little pieces, got down on my hands and knees and dug a huge hole by the side of the road. I buried everything I just read and covered it with dirt and sand and gravel, patted it all down with the underside of my fist so nobody could ever read his life again. I grabbed Rondell's file, opened the cover. Under education, held back in 1st grade, again in 3rd grade, placed in special ed program in 5th grade, dropped out of school entirely halfway through school year. No further public school records. Placed in vocational school program in juvenile hall. Failed to turn in work. Under health concerns. Born extremely premature, underweight with critical addiction issues, underdeveloped lungs, small head circumference, mild learning disabilities. Health improved dramatically during adolescence, now far above national average in height, weight, strength. Nationally ranked AAU basketball player at time of first arrest. Under criminal history, arrested at 11 for assault, arrested at 11 for grand theft auto, arrested at 12 for assault, arrested at 13 for assault with a deadly weapon. History of alcohol and substance abuse. Aloof, antisocial, deeply religious. Under family history. Born to a crack-addicted mother, father unknown. Great-grandmother took him home from hospital, raised him in projects in Oakland, California until she died of melanoma when Rondell was 6. Placed in foster care for a year and a half until Aunt and her partner adopted him. Social services took him away a year later under suspicion of male physical and sexual abuse. Placed back in foster care. In and out of various foster families for the next 3 years until first sentenced to juvenile hall. In system ever since. I closed up Rondell's file and tore his to shreds too. Got back down on my hands and knees and dug another hole right next to the one I dug for Mong's file. I buried his pieces at the very bottom, covered it and packed everything in with the undersides of my fist. I grabbed my own file, stared at the cover. Miguel Castaneda. I wanted to open it so bad to see what it said about me, or how they explained what happened in Stockton, or with my dad, or maybe they'd say about my mom's and how she feels about me now. Or my grandparents in Fresno, but at the same time I was scared. Maybe I didn't really want to read what somebody wrote about me. What if they got something wrong? Or what if I read about my mom's not ever wanting to take me back? Or something about Diego that pissed me off? I sat there at the side of the road for a long-ass time, staring at the file, trying to decide what I should do. I took deep breaths, preparing myself so I could read it, peeked open the folder, flipped to the crime history part, and read the first couple words about what I did. Then I slammed closed the damn thing and ripped it to shreds, and instead of digging a hole this time and burying it in the ground next to Mong and Rondell, I threw my pieces up in the air and let the wind carry them all over the place, little scraps of my life blowing away from me, blowing down the road into the sand across the street. I sat back up on my rock and watched them go everywhere. Then I zipped up my bag and went over everything I just read about Mong and Rondell in my head, the ocean still buzzing behind my back. And then I thought about how the ocean would always buzz like this, long after us three were gone, and the moon in the sky too. It would always come climbing up above the clouds when nighttime came around. And like Mong said, we were just temporary people. We were just passing through. But even so, I decided something's sitting there. Me, Mong, and Rondell might be temporary, but while we were here, we were more than just what some file could say. We were real people too, just the same as anybody else who was alive. If somebody wanted to know about us, they should meet us face to face instead of just relying on typed words. I unzipped my bag, pulled out my journal, and started writing everything down. When I was halfway done, I grabbed my bag, got up, and went over to where Mong and Rondell were laying on their backs in the sand, both their bags underneath their heads as pillows. Mong shot his head up and opened his eyes when I got up to them. But when he saw it was just me, he slowly lowered his head back down and closed his eyes again. I laid on my back right next to them, bag under my head. I stared up at the moon for a little bit, at all the stars in the sky. It made me think of when me and Diego used to lay on our backs near the levee some nights and look straight up in the air. Sometimes we could see stars for days, and now I was laying here with Mong and Rondell doing the same thing. I flipped over and opened my journal. The last thing I can think of before finishing my writing is if I'm being disloyal to Diego by looking at the stars with anybody besides him.